let's dive right in. We're tackling one of the big ones today. The tangled relationship between money and happiness.
Yeah.
And we're doing it by digging into some fantastic material you shared with us, a series of, well, personal reflections on this exact topic.
Right, and this isn't, academic data or economic charts.
Yeah.
What makes the source material so interesting, I think, is its voice. It's reflective, deeply personal, shared by someone named Crystal within the text. And it's just a great example of how powerful ideas can pop up in unexpected places. This was originally part of material for English learning, believe it or not.
Exactly, which is fascinating in itself. So our mission with this deep dive is, well, to pull out the absolute sharpest insights.
The nuggets.
Yeah, the nuggets that really make you pause and, rethink how we often view money, and maybe uncover some different paths to feeling fulfilled.
It's about finding that wisdom woven into these observations.
Okay, let's unpack this then. The first big idea that really jumps out. Crystal's reflections start by suggesting we often use money as a kind of mirror.
A mirror, yes, but the source implies it's often maybe a distorted one.
How so?
Well, we tend to look at our income, our spending, our stuff, and use them to measure success, or even, our own worth.
Oh, right. Comparing our reflection in this money mirror to other people.
Exactly. Like the number on a paycheck or what's in the bank is some kind of, report card on who we are as a person.
Which feels uncomfortable when you say it like that.
And the source pushes back, like really hard against this. Crystal writes very directly, your worth has never been about your income. You are not a number, not a paycheck.
Wow.
It just challenges that whole fundamental notion that your value, your human value, can be quantified that way.
That feels incredibly important. And there's a story in there too, right? A really vivid one that brings this to life.
Yeah, about someone who earned very little, but seemed happier than anyone Crystal knew with a big salary.
Tell us about that.
Well, this person tended tiny pots of herbs, apparently, made tea for neighbors, chatted warmly with the postman. Their life wasn't about accumulation.
Right, it was about connection.
Connection, simple routines. And Crystal observed that this person just never seemed to doubt their own value. They felt richer than any income she'd heard of. Not because of money, obviously, but because of that inner peace and connection.
It really prompts a question, doesn't it, for you listening? Have you ever felt that pressure? Linking your income or your possessions to your self-worth, or maybe seen others do it? It's so easy to get caught in that comparison trap.
It really is. And building on that idea that worth isn't income, the source brings up another really crucial distinction.
Okay.
The difference between comfort and contentment.
Ah, right. Comfort, that's the stuff money can buy, yeah? Like a warm place to sleep, nice clothes, good coffee.
A reliable car.
Yeah.
Those things definitely smooth out life's rough edges. They provide ease. And the source acknowledges their value. But contentment, as it's described here, that's something else entirely.
Different quality.
Yeah, it's a quiet sense of, like, this is enough.
Yeah.
And Crystal's reflections really emphasize this doesn't come from buying things or external stuff.
So where does it come from?
It grows from connection, from appreciating small moments, from truly seeing what you already possess, not just physically, but in your life,
There's that powerful anecdote you mentioned, contrasting experiences. The luxury hotel versus, what was it?
A simple shared meal. Yeah, the feeling of being kind of restless and solitary in a fancy, quiet hotel room. Compared to the peace and deep sleep felt after sharing a simple dinner on a mattress on the floor in a friend's tiny studio.
Wow, that's quite the image.
That simple shared moment brought a sense of belonging, of peace, that the luxury setting just couldn't touch.
That story really sticks with you. It underscores the core question the source seems to be nudging us towards, doesn't it? Instead of always asking, what can I buy to feel better? Maybe a more valuable question is, what do I already have that makes me feel whole?
Oh, that completely reframes it, yeah.
Right.
And when we think about what we truly possess, beyond material things, the source points to a currency we often spend pretty carelessly.
Which is?
Time.
Time is wealth. It feels obvious when you say it like that, but do our actions reflect it?
Yeah.
Often not.
Well, Crystal writes that every job, every task, every dollar earned, ultimately it costs us time, our life energy, really.
Yeah.
And a key concern raised in the material is that we get so focused on chasing more.
Always more. More success, higher status.
Their possessions. that we rarely pause
Mm-hmm.
to ask, hang on, is this how I actually want to spend my finite life?
Mm,
And in that relentless chase, those quiet, simple moments we just talked about,
yeah.
they just sort of drift away.
Like a sunset you missed because you were working late, or a conversation you cut short because you had to rush off.
Exactly. The source uses the anecdote about saying yes to every ambitious opportunity, right?
Believing that was the path.
Yeah, the path to fulfillment. But then the realization hit. Months had passed without seeing a single sunset. Feeling, quote, present in meetings, but absent in life.
Oof. That hits hard.
And that moment of clarity led directly to asking, what if we stopped chasing more and started asking, what is enough?
That question is a real pivot point. What is enough? It sounds simple, but it's huge.
The material explores this beautifully, I think.
Yeah.
Enough, Crystal suggests, isn't about being average or like settling for less than you need.
It's not deprivation.
Not at all.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
about finding peacefulness. It's about recognizing the point where you can stop striving quite so hard.
Why?
So that the joy you already have isn't buried, buried under the weight of too much stuff or too many obligations.
And there is an example in the source, right, of someone who seemed to embody this idea of enough.
Yes, someone described as one of the most content people Crystal had ever met.
Okay.
They had, I think, a one-bedroom flat, rode a secondhand bike, stayed off social media. Pretty simple on the surface.
And there enough involved.
Things like slowly brewing coffee each morning, feeding birds, reading poetry. It was about intentionally choosing these simple joys and actually making time for them.
It's a gentle invitation, isn't it, for all of us listening, just to ask ourselves, what does enough look like in my life?
Yeah,
It's probably unique for each person, no single answer.
absolutely. And interestingly, once we start thinking about valuing what we have and defining enough, the source shifts perspective slightly
Why too?
to another powerful non-monetary source of joy, the act of giving.
Ah, giving. Crystal highlights that the joy in giving feels different, right? It's
Yeah.
not transactional.
Exactly. It comes from the heart, is the idea, not from obligation or wanting recognition. And importantly, it doesn't have to be grand gestures. Small acts count just as much.
Why is giving so powerful then, according to this?
The point seems to be that giving connects us deeply to others. And surprisingly, it expands our own happiness.
Mm-hmm.
The source uses that wonderful line, when we lift someone else, we rise too. It suggests this profound sense of purpose, of fulfillment found in helping others.
The story of the man giving his umbrella away. That illustrates it perfectly, doesn't it?
In the rain, yeah. Walking away wet but smiling.
Simple but powerful.
And the significance, as highlighted in the source, isn't that he had tons of stuff to give away. It was that he gave when he saw a need.
Right.
It just underlines that the feeling you get from a genuine act of kindness can far outweigh the feeling from, say, acquiring more stuff or earning a big paycheck.
That really circles back to the trap the source mentioned earlier, doesn't it? That endless cycle of upgrading.
Oh yeah, the clothes, the tech, the furniture, often driven by wanting status or maybe just wanting to feel successful in the eyes of others.
It's like a treadmill you can't get off.
It is. And Crystal contrasts this sharply with the peace that comes from having time,
Oh, just having time, but
having the space that time provides. Time to rest, time to think deeply, time to just be present with the people who matter most.
so it's suggesting we could use money differently, not to chase external validation, but maybe to buy back some of that precious time and space.
That seems to be the core idea. Taking a day off, saying no to things that lead to burnout, maybe choosing experiences over yet more possessions, creating space instead of clutter.
Because
Because, as the source wisely puts it, status fades, but time well spent becomes part of you.
oh, I like that. That sense of integrated experience feels much more lasting than any material gain.
Doesn't it? And if you start to train yourself to value time and presence, the source suggests you start noticing something incredibly valuable that's, well, right in front of you all along.
Okay.
The focus shifts to the quiet, often overlooked, ordinary moments of life.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Crystal's reflections seem to culminate in this idea that true happiness isn't some grand destination you arrive at.
No big achievement needed.
Right. It's found more in the small things.
Exactly. The quiet hum of the morning, the simple pleasure of that first sip of tea, the sound of someone you love laughing unexpectedly, that kind of thing.
And these aren't just like nice little details.
No, the source argues they are everything. And crucially, unlike status or possessions, they cannot be bought.
Cannot be bought.
True happiness, it suggests, isn't something you need to earn or acquire. It simply needs to be noticed right here, right now.
Wow. That's a beautiful conclusion to reflect on, and helpful too. As part of the material you shared, there was also that section listing some key vocabulary used in these reflections.
Yeah, that was useful.
It helps frame these ideas, doesn't it?
It does. Crystal used these specific words to help articulate these sometimes quite subtle concepts. Should we quickly run through them?
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, so contentment wasn't just happiness, but that quiet feeling of having enough right where you are.
Okay.
Worth was defined specifically as your inherent personal value, like deliberately separated from income or numbers. Restless captures that uneasy feeling, that something's missing, even when things look good on the outside.
We've all felt that.
Yeah. Clutter referred not just to physical stuff, but also mental overload. Too much going on.
Mental clutter, right?
Presence means being fully in the moment, not distracted. Chase describes that often detrimental running after goals or desires.
At the expense of other things.
Exactly. Enough signifies that feeling of peacefulness, knowing where to stop. Burnout is, well, that exhaustion from pushing too hard for too long.
We know that one too well sometimes.
And finally, drift away describes how precious quiet moments can subtly disappear in the rush of life.
Giving language to these internal states and experiences,
Yeah.
it definitely makes them easier to grasp and think about.
Absolutely. They provide a kind of framework for understanding the journey these reflections take us on.
So pulling all of this together then, what's the big takeaway from this deep dive into Crystal's reflections? What should we be thinking about?
Well, I think it's just a powerful invitation, really. A gentle nudge to question our often deeply ingrained assumptions about money, status, success.
To look at them differently.
Yeah. The source challenges us to look inward and also around us, to value time, connection, and those simple, often overlooked moments.
Rather than getting lost in the external chase for more.
Exactly. It offers a different, perhaps, gentler metric for a well-lived life.
It offers clarity, maybe, and a shift in perspective that feels incredibly relevant right now. And it all came from the material you chose to share with us.
Here's a valuable perspective to explore, definitely.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, maybe let's just leave you with that final thought from the source material. Something to sit with.
Okay.
Happiness doesn't need to be earned. Sometimes it just needs to be noticed.
A simple thought, but perhaps the most profound one in there.
Thank you for bringing this material to our attention and for joining us for this deep dive.
My pleasure.